You have stumbled upon or perhaps intentionally ended up here at my podcast, Actual Leigh. No matter the path that led you here, I hope that you will hang out and join me for a truly enjoyable conversation. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to Actual Leigh. This week it's just me again, and I'm going to be answering some questions that people have submitted to me. I put it out on Tellonym, I don't know, I'll link to it, and just ask for some questions. I haven't looked at most of them, so I don't know what they are yet, and I'm gonna answer them even if I don't like them. I did do a previous episode, which you will have since heard, where I answered some questions that were submitted to me by online people, some friends and stuff, and I really enjoyed that. So I thought I would just ask for questions. I know I always ask at the end of my episodes, not always, but often. But I haven't really gotten anything, so I just thought I'd be like, hey, and it seems like it worked because I got a couple notifications. I don't know if that means there's only a couple there, but yeah. So I just watched the this Halloween special from 1976, and I recorded myself watching it, and I'm going to share that video. It's not going to be out on the podcast stuff, but I will try to remember to link to it in the descriptions for the episodes and stuff. So if you're curious about it, I feel like there's some editing opportunity there with my reactions to stuff, because cocaine was a hell of a drug. That was my takeaway from watching that. So yeah, and I am old enough to remember cocaine being a big part of party culture and stuff like that. So I have memories of going to parties as a child, probably like 2 or 3 years old, and seeing people do cocaine. I don't particularly remember like their behavior or anything, because all of that was like normalized to me. But I do remember like the straws cut at an angle, and the sniffing and stuff like that. And it just kind of stuck in there. And I know people are like, oh, children should not be around that. But I was around it, and it is what it is. It doesn't, like, your opinion of it after the fact, irrelevant to me. So don't bother me with that. Yeah, so I just, it's just kind of funny, And to be clear, the reason why your opinion is not relevant to me is because all you're doing is forcing your feelings onto me about something I have no control over, and it doesn't feel good. It's not that I disagree or whatever. Like, I didn't put my son into those situations. I'm not saying that it's okay and that you should do that to your kids or whatever. I'm just saying it's already happened. So you being like, oh, that's child abuse, or it's that, or it's this or that, and then doing the sad face and saying you're sorry, that's you dictating to me how we should now both feel, because I've told you something about myself. And I don't like it. And I feel like people really need to stop doing that, because it's just not, it's like, if you don't know how to react, you can just be like, you just told me something that blew my mind and I don't know how to react. And that's a legitimate response, or if it makes you uncomfortable or whatever, like, all those things are real. But to like dictate how it should feel, I don't like it. It's like when I would say, oh, I didn't have that toy, I wanted it, but I never got it because of, when I explained the reasons around why I didn't get it. And then people are like, oh, I'm so sorry, and sad face and stuff. Or, that my housing has always been kind of unstable and it's been a struggle and stuff. And it's like, oh, sad face and stuff. And it's like, there's no room for me. There's no room for my feelings, my experience, my interpretation. Everybody else is taking their interpretation about my life and then forcing it down my throat. I mean, and it's, when I say everyone else, I mean like almost everybody, even people that I consider friends. if I'm like really honest about like one of my experiences or something, they'll do that kind of stuff to me. I'll get like the sad reaction or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not trying to tell you a sad story. I'm trying to be me. I'm trying to be, and I'm sorry that like some of the things from my reality make you think it's sad or that you would be sad if you went through that. But you know what? I had to go through that. I had to live through that and find a way to get through it to get to the person that I am now. And if I sat around and did what society seems to think that I should be doing with my reality, I I probably wouldn't even exist. Like it's there has to be a way to interject some kind of pause in those moments to not force your own interpretation onto other people, to make space for the other person who's talking and sharing for their feelings and their interpretation. Because it's going to be more complex than, I'm so sorry, you know, because we're people. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm so tired of not getting to be a person that I don't get to be honest with anybody about my reality because I'm anticipating that reaction. And on the rare occasion that I relax and decide to trust someone enough to be honest with who I am in a way where I just have a conversation and don't like think 20 times before I say something, I get that reaction and it hurts. It sucks. I feel shut down. I feel like I shouldn't say anything else because I'm going to have to be like, well, let's back up from what you just put on me so that we can have like a talk about like, I don't want to do all of that work. Why do I have to force space for me? Why is that other person not more interested in my experience? Like to me, it tells me they're not. So why put the effort in? And the fact that I can drop the conversation after they say, I'm so sorry, and they never follow up, tells me they're not interested. So, yeah, I only have one friend who reacts to stuff like I'm a human being and I get to have the experiences I've had without being turned into like a sad sticker. Um, and she learned how to respond that way by listening to me be frustrated with other people over the years. Because like she also had some of those experiences, but she hadn't figured out the language around it. She knew it was bugging her, but she didn't and then I like, this is something that's always bothered me because even as a kid, it was like I couldn't say things that were completely normal to me. I didn't get to have a normal because they weren't normal for other people, but for some reason, I'm supposed to react like everybody else is normal, and I gotta tell you, some people that have really stable lives, they're really boring lives. Like I've gotten to do some cool shit in my life and I'm like, they're like talking and I'm like, okay, you know? So, but I would never force that on them. I'm able to like take my own feelings about their life experiences and how I would not have enjoyed some of those and not make it about me. I can put that aside and think about how they, as a person I know that they are, would feel about those experiences because those experiences are, in line with their life experience. They're normalized to it. And I can accept that. And I feel like that's, I don't know, a lot of people are not good at that. I love when people are like, oh, I'm an empath. And then they say, I'm so sorry all the time as a way to show people that they're empathizing. And I'm like, that is not empathizing. You are not flexing an empath muscle right there. That's something else. Okay. Maybe you feel some things that are kind of empathy, but the way that you're expressing it, the tools that you're using to express your empathiness, not empathy, not compassionate, not humanizing, not kind, just not. So anyway, I just get that out of my system. I'm probably gonna get anxious about posting that, but I just really, if I can make one person think a little bit more about the language that they use when they hear somebody say something that makes them uncomfortable, then it's worth it. Um, you know, it just, it's one of those social scripts that I just don't like, and it's like when people do it, I just kind of lose interest in the person. I'm just like, nope, they're not safe, and then it's kind of it. Um, if I like them enough, I'll tell them I don't like it and give them the opportunity to adapt. But most people don't. They have a hard time with particulars. It's I feel like it's an autistic superpower to be able to like keep track of people's preferences. So like you can love each person as the individual that they are in the way that they need. Like I have a friend who needs exclamation points. She needs in text, she needs me to add the things that let her know the emotion because otherwise she reads it blank and then she feels like I'm not interested and it feels bad to her. So she told me that. So I always make sure to add these expressiveness things to my texts that I've honestly never used before. But I totally get it. Like I never really thought about it because it had never been brought up to me. And I don't read emotion in other people's texts one way or another. It's just words. And then sometimes I'll be like, well, what does that actually mean? But I take things at like face value. So it has to be like vague, you know? So I do get in trouble because I miss the emotional weight sometimes. But that's, anyway. Let's see. We got some questions. I got Oh, look, I got a text that says, "How are you doing?" I I don't like that question. If you are someone that texts with me and you want to start a conversation with me, please don't start it with that. Unless I know you really, really well, where there's an established like understanding about my life and your life, so I know like what you're actually asking. Don't do that. You can ask the same kind of question but be a little more specific. Give me something to focus on, and then but if it's just how are you doing and I don't know the person very well, I don't want to answer it. It stresses me out. It's too open-ended. I don't know what to say. Um, and that does tie into what I just said earlier because my life is pretty difficult, like my day-to-day stuff. And so if I'm really honest about how I'm actually doing, then I get the, oh, I'm so sorry. Or, oh, I'm not trying to bother you, or like the weird reading into things. And I don't want that either. But I'm also not a liar. I've started just saying I'm alive and kind of leaving it at that, you know? But I don't like it when I see the question. And okay, here's the other part of that. When it's a man DMing me, often out of the blue, they either say, "Hey, hi," or "How are you doing?" and nothing else. They are trying to start a conversation with a stranger, female person, and almost always there's some interest there on their part. Um, but they want me to do the work of entertaining them. They're going to ask the question, and then I'm supposed to like actually do the work of sort of laying out the shape of the conversation. Um, and it's not it's not a great impression in my opinion. Um, so I just don't like respond a lot. And I either have the DM sitting there at length for like a month or two, and sometimes they text again, the same thing later, and I still haven't responded, or they text me something else completely like, when are you streaming, or what do you podcast about, or something like that. And then boom, they got paragraphs because they gave me something to talk about, like something like, yeah. And I realize that this complication for me, the way that it feels complicated is probably part of the autism, but I actually feel like my gripes with it and the reasons why I feel like it's not cool are things that impact everybody, except for the people who like are very comfortable relying on assumption. People who rely on assumptions are going to see the question, they're going to assume what the other person meant, and they're just going to go with it, right? But anybody who's like kind of open and things are open to interpretation and they're not real sure where the person's coming from, stuff like that, it's going to be, it's better to show your cards a little bit than make someone else do the work. That's my opinion. I don't have a problem talking to people. I just don't like the social scripts part where it feels like there's a lot of pressure to fit into a box or whatever. So, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, so I'm gonna, okay, let me open that. I got distracted by that text. Let's see. So the first question that I got was, I opened the wrong app. What's your top favorite graphic novel? Okay, so um I don't have favorites. I don't do I don't have anything against favorites. If I had a favorite, I would tell you what my favorite is, but I just tend not to have favorites. Sometimes I have ones that I don't like as much, but if I like something, I like it for what it is, and I can't really compare them to have like a favorite because they're all in individual things. So, um, yeah, so I don't have a favorite per se. I did make a video, which I'm gonna splice in here, showing my collection and talking about it a little bit. And just off the top of my head, some of the ones that I really enjoyed the artwork on and the writing and the stories on was Tokyo Ghost, Isola, and Monstrous. Those are all really cool. But I mean, gosh, like pretty much all the books I have are like, they're so awesome, and the people that make them are so talented, and the stories are cool, and the art is cool. Some of them, the art's not really that cool, but it conveys the story, and the story is really good. So but some of it, the art is just, it's just like phenomenal in and of itself. I'm not really into like superhero, the more traditional Marvel and stuff. I don't know if I even have any Marvel comics. Most of my stuff is like Dark Horse or Image. That's not intentional. Like I'm not like, oh, I'm only gonna buy that stuff. It's what I'm like drawn to. They just happen to carry it. Um, and that, like, I think I want Boys. I want the Boys series. It's on my wish list. But I don't have it. I have Powers, which was released on, is it Dark Horse? I don't remember. But it was also, the TV show was on the PlayStation or Sony, or I don't remember now. But the TV show was released. It was Sony was involved. I just don't remember if it was through PlayStation or Sony. But I'm just gonna look it up. Hold on. God. it got 48% Rotten Tomatoes. Like that means anything to me. I don't read reviews, or I don't care. Matter of fact, like if I see a lot of like on Twitter or whatever, and everyone's like, "Oh my God," I like won't watch whatever it is because it just ruins it for me. So Powers is basically like a sort of like a gritty superhero where you have like a slightly like more realistic. Yeah, it was a PlayStation Network that did it. That's right. I was right. It's the Image Marvel comic book series. Um, but it's more human, less big grand gestures of evil or good, right? It's people. People are complicated and they're gritty and shitty, and a lot of times when people do the right things, it's not necessarily for the right reasons. It's just not as straightforward as all that. Um, and I liked it. I liked the way the story and the world was kind of like written out, and then of course in that darkness that's in there is in boys, but to a oomph degree, right? Of like, so yeah, I do like dark things. It's yeah. But other than that, I don't really have any like superhero stuff really. It's all just like other stuff. There's some supernatural stuff. I do have The Walking Dead, which isn't really supernatural. It's just is what it is. Um, and yes, I like the comics a lot more than the TV show. I did watch all of the TV show, and I accepted the changes that they made, and I liked some of the characters they added that weren't in the books. And I feel like they made up for some of the things that they took away from us that were in the books that I really enjoyed. Like I loved like Andrea's character in the book, and they completely just fucking shafted that character in the TV show. Um, but I also like there's a lot of like lack of continuity in terms of like people's logic for applying information that they have gathered through their experiences that we've seen through the TV show. And so because it doesn't work for the plot or for the suspense that they're building in that episode or whatever. So that kind of stuff where characters suddenly just get a lot dumber and forget how to do a thing, or forget that they can do a thing that they had been doing consistently for like 2 seasons or whatever, just like drove me batty. And that's stuff that the TV show didn't, or the books didn't do. The continuity was there, and the character development was, had like had a real flow to it, and the TV show character development's just, it's literally just convenient for the writers sometimes. So, it doesn't mean you can't like it. You can totally like it. It just, it was very frustrating for me, but it's a very good show to have on in the background while I was crafting. So, um, all right. Let's see what else I got. Um, oh, that's nice. Okay, I'm going to the bottom of the questions so that I go to the first one. First question, prefer staying up late or getting up super early? Well, I prefer to stay up late and sleep late, I guess. Well, honestly, okay, so I've always been a night owl, like naturally just wired for it, which is a thing if you did, like science has like supports this, that there are different like internal rhythms for sleep, and you can't really change them, and it can actually be bad for your health to change them. So If you are a night owl like me and you have people in your life telling you you're lazy or whatever, fuck them. When I was younger, I didn't need a lot of sleep, just naturally didn't need a lot of sleep. So I would go to bed pretty late, like 4 or 5 in the morning. But I would get up by like 9 or 10 at the latest. And that was like my natural. I didn't set alarms or anything. And that's what I liked. I liked that. I felt like that was a really good time to wake up. If I wake up earlier, like if I wake up between like 6 and 8 in the morning, I feel really sick for like the first half of the day, and it's been like that my entire life. So the school years were like really rough for me. My assumption with a capital ASS is that because my body's hormone cycle is running on a particular schedule, that those hours are when I'm releasing some hormones that maybe my body really doesn't like me being awake for. So it doesn't feel good. But I don't really know. So yeah, but right now I've been sleeping like a lot. Like a lot more than I'm used to this last couple of months because of my thyroid stuff. And so I go to bed at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I wake up between like 11:30 and 12:30, and I don't like that. It's too late. I don't mind going to bed that late, but I don't like the sleeping that late. I can't fall asleep earlier, even with the melatonin I've tried. My body is just like, nah. And I can't wake up earlier. Like I literally cannot. I set an alarm and I'm like, and then I go back to sleep and sleep through the alarm. So I am respecting my body right now and I'm doing what it wants to do, but I am asking it on a regular basis if we could go back towards something a little earlier, even if I have to go to bed earlier, like, you know. But my brain is like most functional after like 4 or 5 p.m. So I do need some of those hours for functionality. Okay, next question. What kind of motorcycle or motorcycles did you ride and where and when? So I had a couple motorcycles and predominantly sports bikes. I did have a sport touring bike. My last one was a sport touring. I think my first bike was technically a sport touring as well. So my first street bike was a Suzuki SV 650S because I had the fairings, so it was an S. It was an O2, if I remember correctly. O1, O2. Around there. It was before they got all square. It was like it was all curvy. And I outgrew that bike really fast, but I put 30,000 miles on it in under 12 months. It was about 10 months. I put 30,000 miles on it, just like boom. And then my bike after that was an older, like a late 90s Gixxer. It was like a 600. It was like one of the fat ones. And I didn't really like that bike, but I got it for really cheap. Like fixed it up. The person I bought it from, it like totaled it, and he used it to get another one, so I bought it and then fixed it up. And then I low sided that bike, hit my head pretty hard, and then I got. That's when I got the R1. And that was the R1 was my dream bike, but it's not the bike I wanted to get. And I'm going to tell this story because I've never gotten to tell this story before because nobody ever asks. I'll kind of like leave it open. I'll be like, yeah, I got the R1, but that's not really what I wanted. No one ever goes, well, why did you get it then? So, I'm going to ask for you. And I'm going to answer. Okay. Okay. Um, so I got was it the O2 or the O1? R1. It's with like the light that looks like, from Battlestar Galactica. Cylon. It looked like a Cylon. Um, so I got that one. It was like I loved that bike, dude. Every time it would go by, just like, oh my God. right? Like I wish people made me feel the way that like vehicles do. And I don't mean that like in a pervy way. It's like sometimes humans just do the most amazing fucking things, and that motorcycle or like certain vehicles when they're made really well and the engines, you can tell the engines are made well just from the way that they sound, and like it just like goosebumps, you know? People don't do that for me. But anyway, so I was looking at getting an R6 because I want to do track days, or maybe I'd already started doing track days, I don't remember. But and the R6 is a really good bike for that because lots and lots of power, but very forgiving, and you can actually go faster in the corners as you get better on a 600 than 1,000 for the tracks that I was going to that have like much smaller corners. Is just like the it's a physics thing. Anyway, so the so I found one. It only had 800 miles. It had like all the mods I wanted, and it was a really good price. And the person selling it, she had injured her back, and so she just couldn't ride anymore. And so it was like this amazing deal that would have just made these people's lives easier. And so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go home and get the paperwork done and blah blah blah. And then I get home to my apartment, and I had this person in my life at that time who I was, I guess, my boyfriend or whatever. And he was loaning me the money for the bike. Um and he had gone and bought another bike without telling me, with the money that we had like a formal loan. Like we already had a loan agreement in paper, on paper and everything. He went and spent that money on a different bike without talking to me. And so this entire time I had been doing the work of shopping for a bike, but he had already found one. And so he had to like tell me about it. And then I had to tell these people, basically, I what I should have done is been like, you know, I don't want that bike. I don't know why you did that. You keep the bike. You bought it, and made him still do the loan for the bike that I actually wanted. But I couldn't deal with it. I had a traumatic brain injury at that time, and I couldn't, I don't know. A lot of this stuff I wrote in like my journal entries. Like I remember some of it, but there's a lot of it that is like the only reason why I remember is because this is my journal entries because of the brain injury. But I couldn't deal with his drama. Like he would have gotten so angry, so aggressively angry. Um and so it was just easier to go that way. Also, he was a squid. So if he had kept that bike, he would have died. Like he would have just crashed and died. He'd already totaled like two bikes in the couple of months that I had known him, and there were more that were totaled by the time I was able to unroot him. And he's just very young, and there's a reason why the death statistics for motorcyclists between the ages of like 15 and 21 are 1 in 5, specifically for males, is because of the whole brain formation thing, and the fact that the threat to their safety doesn't feel real because of that. So and I'm sure like culturally some of that macho shit is also part of it, because I had taken quite a few people underneath my wing to teach them how to ride, and they would reach this point where they felt like they were a good rider, and suddenly they acted like they were better than me. And like, but they didn't do that with the guy riders. They only did it with me. It was tiresome. So the R1 was my favorite bike. But every time I did a track day, I could feel the limitations of having that much engine underneath me, right? Because uh like you don't even want to fart in the middle of a corner, because if it makes you like grip a little bit, you're gonna like spin up that tire, right? It's like there's so much power. I could just like getting on the freeway, I would be like in fourth gear, and there was enough power in fourth gear that I just pull the front end up on accident. Just do a wheelie, you know? And I grew up on motorcycles, so I had like this intuitive understanding of the physics and stuff. And then, I started driving when I was really young. And then my first bike being a V twin also taught me a lot about throttle control and braking and using the engine for braking and stuff. So going to a liter bike, to a 1000 cc bike, was pretty smooth, and that technique like transferred pretty well. And it saved my ass, because even though I grew up on motorcycles, I still had to learn how to ride on the street, and I had to learn how to do track riding, which is a different style. And then also I didn't grow up on sports bikes, and some of the rules for sports bikes are a little different. Like when you're on like an upright bike or a cruiser, the percentage of braking between the front and back brake is different than when you're on a sports bike. So I was used to bikes that had more of like a 50-50. And on a sport bike, if you do 50-50, you're going to lock your rear tire up. And then you have to know how to ride out, when your rear tire's locked up. You can't just be like, oh, and let go of the brakes, because the bike's gonna be all fuck you and shoot you off the bike, right? So you have to be able to literally ride that slide out, And when I was first learning, there were a couple of times I locked up the rear, and the bike, like the back end's like coming, I'm like basically jackknifed, like coming up behind traffic. And sometimes I just got lucky, but some of it was just the technique of just kind of learning stuff and slowing everything down and smoothing everything out. So yeah. And then my last bike that I had was the sport touring bike, is the O2 ZRX 1200R. It's a Kawasaki. It's the Eddie Lawson replica, so it looks like an old sort of retro race bike. That bike was huge. Like when I dropped it, I needed help to pick it up. I could not get it up by myself. I couldn't get it up. Um, but I was like having some nerve issues in my arms, and the sports bike for commuting and stuff, just not so much. And so I wanted a bike that was more comfortable, and it was great for like getting into the city. And I save by commuting on my motorcycle into the city. I save so much money, but I think it like aged me 10 years, because not even because of the car drivers. I mean, yeah, Bay Area car drivers are frustrating. They got their heads up their butts. And now that we have a lot of Teslas around, it's even worse, because they're worse than the BMW drivers. I mean, not to generalize, but the generalizations exist for a reason. Um, and they're worse than the Prius drivers. The Prius drivers are like, I don't think any of them are capable of turning their heads. Um, but like the other motorcyclists, the riding culture in Northern California it's different. And when I first started riding on the street, I was in Southern California, and I don't know how it is now. I can't, I have no idea. So any commentary I make is about when I lived there, which was like, 2000 through 2003 or so. But down, during that time, if you're on the freeway and there were other motorcyclists, you would catch up to each other, and then you would ride together. And sometimes, like, you'd have like the motorcycle cops, like the CHP cops, CHP motorcycle, CHP words, would join you, and they would get in front and go like 80 and like lane split with the car in the carpool, and like lead this whole lane. And then when it was your turn to exit, you would like wave at everybody as you were leaving, and like, everybody was like friends. And the only time you kind of dealt with like that sort of like competition was on the weekends when you would go into the mountains. Sometimes the different groups, like you'd have like the Harleys or whatever, would have a little bit of an attitude. But once you got up to where the everybody had lunch, everybody was cool. And honestly, I saw more attitude towards like female riders than I saw between like the bike types at that point. So yeah, but and then when I moved up here, the motorcyclists treat the road like a raceway, and they all like pass each other. It doesn't matter if you're doing 80, they're going to pass you, and they're going to get irritated that you're in front of you on the freeway, in front of them on the freeway, and they'll do shit like, you know, cut over and lane split at a high speed to cut over again and start lane splitting ahead instead of riding together and creating like awareness with the cars, you know, kind of split apart and make it safer for everybody. And I saw so many motorcyclists do really dangerous, dumb things that frightened the car drivers. And not just because the car drivers are oblivious to whatever, the motorcyclists are doing things that are not predictable. There are reasons why there are guidelines for lane splitting in certain ways and stuff like that. And lane splitting in California, lane sharing is the technical term, is legal. And for those of you not in the United States, most states in the United States, it's illegal to lane share whatsoever. Most countries in the rest of the world, it is legal and expected, as in car drivers are like, get the fuck out of the way. And in the US, car drivers get offended. They will open their doors on motorcyclists. They will pull over into the lane to block so the motorcyclists can't get ahead. And it's all very dangerous. Americans are very like, you can't go ahead of me. You know, it's like, get a motorcycle and do it too. Come on. But you know, and the lane sharing thing partially came from like the era of when motorcyclists were all air cooled, and so in places where it's really hot, motorcycles going to overheat if, you know, if you can't keep moving. So, but yeah, anyway, so I saw motorcyclists just do crazy ass things, you know, and then like you literally have motorcyclists like lane splitting in every single lane on the Bay Bridge, which is already crowded. It is nuts. Like there's, even though there's like exits on either side of the freeway in that area, there is no reason for the middle lanes to have lane splitting. Like it just I would get so stressed out by the time I got to work, and it wasn't the car drivers usually. It was the other motorcyclists. It was so far it ruined riding. The culture up here was just different. Like the motorcyclists didn't wave at each other. Like all the little things that I grew up with up here were gone by the time I started riding. So yeah. So most of my riding was Southern California, as I mentioned, and then up here. I did a little bit of like going along the coast and going to Skaggs Road and stuff up here, but it's just, it's not as safe. Like in Southern California, a lot, not all, but a lot of the roads that are really popular, especially with the sports riders, at the time were not heavily trafficked. So there would be some cars, but not like a lot of cars. And so there wasn't as many car versus motorcycle incidents. And the roads are much tighter, which means that the speeds that people are going through the turns was much lower. So if they crashed, you know, the outcome wasn't as severe. And some of the more popular roads up here, you can go 100 miles per hour through those turns. And hitting a guardrail at 100 miles per hour is not good. So, you know, like the death statistics difference was basically like the amount of people that died, you know, in a year down there collectively in the Southern California area on the back roads, you know, was like a weekend up here kind of thing. It is very, very different. And then another thing that was different is down there, like when we would go riding to like GMR or whatever, we would do a sweep. So we would go up the road and come back down. And then we would just ride that road over and over again until lunchtime. And then sometimes we would like leave and go to Palomar or whatever and do the same thing. And so you know where the gravel is, you know where the neighbor where the oil is that the neighbors put down or whatever. So people would put oil down and try to stop the motorcyclists. It's people are people got control issues. So and here people will be like going from point A to point B to point C. There's no redundancy. There's no like checking ahead or getting to know the roads. So like if you go out on a ride, like with a BARF group or whatever, BARF is like Bay Area Riders Forum, there were always accidents. There was like one weekend I went out with a group of like 15 people or so, and 2 people crashed separately. And that's a lot of stress. I mean, it ruins your day, you know? Um, and it was literally like stuff that shouldn't happen. You know, like one person hit gravel. And if you'd done a sweep, you would know the gravel's there so you could avoid it. And the other person hurt, she cut too far on the inside of a turn that she should have been on the outside. And so she hit the bumper of somebody's car with her foot peg. So she was okay and everything. They were both fine, but they're absolutely avoidable accidents. And I was like, I'm not riding with the group anymore. My parents raised me better, and yeah, it's not fun. So, and then after my health issue started, I sold my bike, so that I could pay for medical bills. With the assumption I wasn't going to be able to ride for a while anyways. I could ride now if I had a bike, but I don't have money for a bike, so, or the insurance or anything. I still have all my gear though, both my cold weather and track gear and stuff. So, um, yeah. So the next question is, how many DM requests do you have on Insta? 0. I have 0 requests. I had 2 that had been just sitting there for a really long time, and I didn't know because like you have like your regular inbox, then you have like your filtered inbox, and then you have your request inbox. And if you click on the request inbox, there's a there's like a hidden request inbox inside there, and they were in there. And one of them was an artist thanking me for sharing some of their art. I guess I didn't follow them, so it filtered them. And then the other one was like a sales thing for makeup or jewelry, but it was like one of those scammy sites where they're gonna want you to pay or whatever. But that's it. I don't get those like a lot of messages from people really at all anywhere. Like the stuff that my friends talk about, I don't get that stuff. Every now and again I get somebody that will text me like hi, and like I said, I ignore that. So, you know, um when I first started clowning, I did get excuse me. I did get some like hey sexy or hey beautiful messages, but I never responded to any of those because I don't like being talked to that way. I'm a person. Like you could say hello Leigh because my name is on everything, so they could treat me like a person by using my name. I think that your makeup is very pretty, or that picture you posted was very sexy, and that would not offend me. But because they are treating me like an object, I don't like that. You know, I think, I feel like men should know better by this point, but they don't. And you know, flattery doesn't work for me anyways. Like it's not going to make me interested in somebody. Um, like what's going to make me interested in somebody is talking to them and learning about them as a person, not what they can give me with words. Anyway, um, And I got a question. What are you thinking about right now? I think about everything all the time. Duh. What am I wearing today? I'm wearing the same thing I was wearing yesterday and the day before because that's what I do. I'm wearing a Pikachu tank top and I'm wearing some PJs. PJ bottoms. It's like kind of stretchy and have like a leopard print. I They were like $6 at Costco. I'm not into leopard print. I just honestly I find leopard print a little bit embarrassing, but um it's it's what I'm wearing. So, and I don't sleep in my clothes. And if I got really sweaty or I did something that made me dirty, I would change my clothes, but because I'm not doing anything, that's why I rewear them and until I shower. So, just in case you're wondering and we're thinking that I'm like disgusting or something. And I wash after I use the toilet. So, um and then the other two, I got two more questions that they're not in response to my request, so I'm not going to include them because I'm going to assume they're not. And then I got the question, do you have a favorite quote? And yeah, let me see if I can find it. I used to have it on a card in my wallet and it's not in there anymore. Like I looked for it recently and I couldn't find it and it was kind of bummed me out because I wouldn't have gotten rid of it, you know? But I had it in there like for at least four wallets. Um, I'm trying, show me, why aren't you showing me the quote? Give me the quote. Let me see. Internet is annoying. Let me see if I can find it. There we go. I would rather be ashes than dust. I would rather that my spark should burn out in a brilliant blaze than it should be stifled by dry rot. I would rather be a superb meteor, every atom of me in magnificent glow, than a sleepy and permanent planet. The function of man is to live, not to exist. I shall not waste my days in trying to prolong them. I shall use my time. That the last two lines. That has been my favorite quote. It gives me feelings. For since my mid-20s, I would say. I have always just been full of this intense energy to live, to get out and do things and to live. And, you know, when I was a kid, I spent so much time in my head, in my imagination, and just kind of feeling the world around me. You know, like I could sit in the backyard and watch the leaves on the trees moving, and there's like these patterns and these lines and lights and the way things are sound, and it's just, you know, in all of it, all those details and layers of information, my brain would just be consuming it and traversing it, um and it's my brain just it's just always been like that. And so I just always wanted to feel alive. I wanted to feel like I was making the most of the opportunity that I have to be here and be aware of what's going on before it's over, you know. I don't believe in an afterlife or anything like that, but even if there was an afterlife, even if we knew for sure there's an afterlife, that's still not this life, right? We would not know what our perceptions were going to be or what our experiences were going to be, even if it was like a fluffy, clouded heaven or whatever, you know. Is it really going to feel as visceral as it does to be on a motorcycle when your knee puck hits the ground? Like, or like, you know, when you're going through the redwoods and you're like in the sun and the sun is making you warm, and then all of a sudden, because of the microclimates, you go into the fog and you're fucking freezing. And so you're like, ugh, and then you come into the sun again and you start to thaw out and it just feels like magic. Like, would you get to experience any of that in the afterlife? Probably not. I mean, it would be different, right? So like, um, I just I just wanted to feel as much as I could, and I feel like I got blocked from so much of that as a kid. I My feelings were never okay. It was like the things that I felt weren't appropriate or good enough or whatever, and I would just see kids doing stuff and I just felt like such an outsider, and I couldn't participate in those things. Like nobody liked me. It didn't matter what I did. Like I did not like in PE when you have to do four square dancing and all that shit. Like the teachers had to dance with me because the students would not. Like period. Like when I was on sports teams, even the sports I was good at, they would they would rather lose than have me do stuff. So I was always just, and I felt like an outsider in my own family. And so, like, I wanted to have a life. And that was, by the time I was 10, I was like, I'm not going to have kids. I'm not getting married. I'm going to go do this stuff. I'm going to go have a life, and my life did not go that way. And I just spent like my 20s surviving, just, you know, and I just worked so hard with the idea that like I would get this opportunity to live, even if I had to like wait until my son was an adult and independent and stuff like that, that I would finally get to do stuff and I would get to be a person and I would get to, be on the inside of what I'm perceiving instead of watching everybody else get to do it. Um, and that's that quote. That's, you know, so unfortunately, the quote now brings up feelings of mourning for me, but I still feel the same. And you can see that reflected in my online presence and how much stuff I do and how excited I am about every little fucking thing and how much I enjoy just doing stuff because I just enjoy it. I'm very present when I'm doing things. I'm always very present. And I love the way it feels to breathe and to eat, and the way the cover on my chair feels and all that, like all the time. Um, so yeah. And the last one wasn't a question. They just said that I was beautiful and they enjoy enjoy our interactions. So that's nice. I don't know in what context they know me, so I don't know if that's um like my clown stuff or not, but that's okay. Compliment's a compliment, right? So my stomach is on fire. Like literally, like right there's like this like burning. It's because I had a donut, and when you're not producing like the bile that you need, it's hard to digest your food and it sits in your stomach for too long and then it causes this burning sensation because it's sitting in there for too long. Um, so my mouth enjoyed the donut. We were in the moment together, but I'm not enjoying this part of it. I kind of I'm gonna take some Pepsid, see if it helps. So those are all the questions that I got. I want you guys to listen to a song. I'm not gonna play it here because I don't want to get in trouble, but I'm gonna tell you the name of it as soon as I remember to. I think I saved it here. Yeah. Um, Do, 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 do. There we go. It is by Ronnie Gross Jr. Jr. And it's called Son of a Bitch, Everything's Fine. And I will put a link into the episode information. But I think you should go listen to it. I think it is the theme song for humanity, especially in like the last 5 years or so. Um, and it has puppets. And the puppets are made by the same people that made my puppet Dusty. I follow them on social media and really enjoy their stuff. Matter of fact, like they made this movie called Head. They've made some other movies, but Head was the first one I watched. And if you Google YouTube puppet movie Head, okay, just because I'm going to assume that I'm the only person on the planet over the age of 18 that has safe search turned on, so I can search for Head in Google, and I'm not going to see anything. But you guys, because you're all a bunch of dirty birds, search for puppet movie YouTube Head. It's free. You can watch it on there. Highly recommend. It's like a hacker slash hack and slash movie, but with puppets, and there are puppet boobs. So yeah. So yeah, Elmwood Productions. So that's the group that made my Dusty. So check it out. Let's see, how long have I been recording? A whole hour. God damn, I can talk. You are welcome. Yeah. So this was fun. I hope I get some more questions in the future so I can, you don't have to ask a complicated question to get a long answer from me. So I'm gonna go play Diablo now. I'm gonna go stream. And I hope that everybody who hears this has a good week. And I will see you guys next week. You're gonna see me next week. I'm gonna talk at you next week. Okay, bye. Thank you for hanging out and listening. A huge thank you to my patrons. I could not do this without you. Want to support my creative chaos and get access to exclusive content? Check out my Patreon. Have questions and/or interested in joining me for a conversation? Email me.